This podcast replay is brought to you by Moodius Dental. They offer same-day dentistry with the latest CERIC technology. Take advantage of your insurance benefits for 2019 before the year runs out and they're all gone. Call 305-821-0231 or moodiusdental.com.
It is time now for our Caneswear Miami Hurricanes report. And we do it every week here, of course, with Manny Navarro from The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. Yeah.
What's up?
Yes, sir. And it's all brought to you by Caneswear, and that's, of course, Caneswear.com. Go to the website. Follow them on Twitter at Canes_wear. We're broadcasting from Caneswear right now at 2511 South University Drive in Davie. All right, Manny. First of all, my man, talk to me about the coaching change. What do you think about it, and who is going to be their offensive coordinator?
Well, it's a great question. Manny Diaz obviously said yesterday that he's already spoken to 7 or 8 guys, both at the college and pro level. I will remind everyone that when we went through this a year ago, when Manny Diaz was named head coach, he said the same thing, and we basically still waited another 2 weeks for this to be resolved. So I don't know where they are as far as progress in terms of nailing down who it is that they want, but obviously spread up-tempo is the priority. So a lot of the names that I've reported and others have reported, the one new one was Keith Hefferdeck, I guess, from Arizona State, who is a disciple of Larry Fedora at North Carolina. Talking to some of the former players, they kind of like that offense a little bit more. It's more downhill running, more running back friendly, sort of what Fedora did at Carolina with his offensive schemes. And so if it's going to be an offense that's more running back friendly in a spread offense, I think that probably does Miami good, especially when you've got 2 talented incoming freshmen like Jalen Knight and Donald Chaney Jr. So, I think that's the preference. But to me, listening to Manny talk yesterday, I think up tempo is a big part of it. And Dan Enos only ran the no huddle 7% of the time in his offense at Miami. Manny Diaz wants opposing defenses gassed. He wants them scrambling to make switches. He wants them on their toes. And I think that's going to be the priority with whoever it is that they hire for the OC.
So let me ask you something. Okay, here's the part that I don't know if I have the answer to it, and I don't know if you have the answer to it. I might be being unfair to you here. All right, so you want to run the spread more, or you want to run no huddle, all this. But isn't it also up to your players being able to handle all of these kind of things? So does Manny feel like he had the quarterbacks that could handle this? Or maybe is it that, Enos felt that he didn't have the quarterbacks to give them more responsibilities out there? Where do we land on this? Because I don't have enough information to tell you either way.
Yeah, here's one thing, and it's funny. I just recorded my latest edition of the Wide Right podcast, and we tackled a lot of these topics. But here's where I'll stand. Mark Richt, when he was coach his final season, okay, when we were all complaining about the playbook, right? We're all saying, man, it's so simple. Mark's thought was, hey, listen, I've got to get these guys just to get one play right because they're not smart enough. Without saying they're not smart enough, he basically said they're not smart enough to run a more complicated offense. So what does Manny Diaz do? He goes out and brings in Dan Enos, who runs a much more complicated offense in terms of motions and switching and different things that he was supposed to do. And Dan Enos basically tells us at the end of the season when we had our little press conference with him on signing day, well, we couldn't play fast, we couldn't play up tempo, and we couldn't do some of the things we wanted because the kids didn't know what we were doing. They didn't know the offense. They weren't smart enough to pick it up. So to me, without question, there is an intelligence issue, not only from the quarterback being able to make second reads and third reads, but the receivers running the routes. One thing I will say, I had a long week. Actually, you know this. I was in Shreveport for the bowl game. Drove to Dallas, flew home from Dallas, got up the next morning, drove to Orlando for the Under Armour Media Day to go talk to all these All-Americans. Miami had 4 kids playing in the game on January 2nd. So but they were there to talk, and I talked to three of them. The one thing I've been struck not only by those three kids, but also other ones, including Tyler Van Dyke, who I went to go visit in Connecticut, and Jalen Rivers, who I've seen in Jacksonville, and different kids. I feel like this is a much smarter recruiting class in terms of intelligence level, in terms of understanding of football concepts than the guys that are currently on the team now. And I think you hit it dead on the head. If the kids don't know what they're running, you're not going to be successful. I think whatever offensive coordinator comes in, the number one thing Manny Diaz is going to want to do and say is to have these kids understand what the hell it is they're doing and be capable of executing it and not looking lost and not looking slow because they don't know what they're doing.
Well, I mean, listen, the current Miami Hurricane players aren't very smart. They celebrate penalties. I mean, no, seriously. I mean, give me a break, bro. I was watching this other Canes player that he went and put out his highlights of the game. And it's like, dude, you lost to Louisiana Tech. Why are you putting out your highlights from your own? Like, I think he titled it like "See God" or something like that. Or do you know who I'm talking about? The UM player.
It's so hard. It's so hard to keep up with all of them,
right?
Because they're all on social media constantly.
I mean, I was looking at it now, and I forgot the kid's name because somebody here was showing it to me, and it's like. The kid's like edited his highlights from the La Tech game just so he can put those up. And it's like, dude, do you realize you lost? Who cares what you did, bro? And that's the problem I see with what he has there at the University of Miami.
There's certainly a lack of leadership. And, you know, I dug more into kind of what's been going on behind the scenes because once guys are fired, and kids transfer, you start to hear people open up a little bit more about what went wrong. Mm-hmm. Number one, I think there was without a question a problem between Dan Enos and his quarterbacks. There were guys in that room who flat out hated him. And I think certainly there were other players on the team, guys that he would chew out. And then, you know, Dan wasn't afraid when he went to press conferences with us to bring up the real problems with those players. He would criticize them saying, hey, you know, now, you can look at this two ways. You can say, man, you know, Dan Enos, you got to be smarter. You want your players to like you. Or you can be old school like the rest of us and say, well, why are these kids so damn soft? And I think, you know, again, it's not just a Miami problem. Because I've talked to other college coaches and assistants at different programs. Again, when you had me on last week right after the bowl game, we talked about this. It's a generational thing. These kids nowadays, I mean, a lot of them have to be sort of dealt with kid gloves. And there's a lot of a feeling of, you know, hey, you know what? These coaches owe me. And I'll tell you where it all begins. It begins at the youth level, okay? It begins at the high school level with these kids transferring to 2 and 3 different schools because, hey, you know, I don't like the way this coach is playing me. And, hey, he's not playing me at the position I want. The days of earning the respect of your head coach and playing for your head coach and you know, it's really in the rearview mirror. This is a much more selfish society in terms of players. You see it with Antonio Brown, right? You see it with these guys in the NFL when they get the big Twitter following and all that. In a lot of ways, the tail is wagging the dog now, and these coaches don't know how to deal with it. And the transfer portal has only made it tougher because now these kids think, well, you know what? This coach doesn't like me. I'm going to figure out a hardship. I'm going to figure out a way to get myself eligible for next season. So the whole thing right now, the whole society, the way all of this is working, there are hurdles to deal with. And I think Manny Diaz underestimated, because his defense was successful. I think he underestimated how difficult it was to be able to get the offensive guys that he had nothing to do with recruiting to play for Dan Enos and to play for him. And so now that he's the head coach, his guys, the guys that he's bringing in, the guys that he's recruiting, we'll have to see if they act and perform differently because they're quote unquote Manny guys and not Mark Wirt guys or somebody else's guys.
All right. So what's the latest on some of these guys using the transfer portal, like Lingard and stuff? What's going on?
Well, Lingard clearly wasn't happy that he didn't get a chance to play this season. I know he came back from major knee surgery, and you know, by all accounts, even his, in terms of, you know, what he supposedly told Manny Diaz, that he wasn't right and he needed to get healthy. Now, I think Manny sort of set a dangerous precedent by telling us in the press conference, yeah, he's going to get involved. We're going to get Lorenzo to play more. And then you go to the bowl game and he doesn't play more. I think Lingard is probably going to head to either Florida or UCF because it's close to home. I think he's trying to get a hardship, and he's got a family member who's sick. And so he's trying to get a hardship to be able to play right away next year. And so the Gators have a need at running back. So to me, my gut tells me he's going to end up in Florida, which is where his cousin, Avante Williams, the four-star safety, is probably going as well.
Nice. And the Florida kid just had a nice day to close out his career last night against Virginia. So, he can step in. Now, how much was it injury? What kind of kid is he? What personality clash? Was he working hard? Is he an entitled kid? What did you hear about it behind the scenes with Lingard?
Well, look, I think certainly when you're a five-star recruit, there is a sense of, hey, I should be on the field playing. But I think, the injury was a serious injury, and my understanding was the majority of his teammates liked him. I don't know that Cam Harris necessarily did, because Cam Harris, I don't know if you saw what he tweeted out yesterday, but he was basically saying good riddance to Lorenzo Lingard. But certainly I think there were a lot of other guys who liked Lingard, and I don't necessarily know that the coaching staff didn't like him. I know Coach Eric Hickson was trying to get the kid to be patient and to understand that, hey, you're going to get a chance here. But again, it's a different era, man. God knows what the Florida coaching staff or other coaches have been telling, Lingard's family behind the scenes about the opportunities maybe to play right away and to be the quote-unquote man. I do know that his kids, they certainly look at who's recruited. Miami signed two stud running backs locally who both could play quite a bit as freshmen. And I think Lorenzo Lingard just decided it was a better decision for him to leave. And sometimes, that's the best thing for both sides. I know it hurts. Miami fans don't like to see a five-star kid leave, but if Lorenzo Lingard goes somewhere else, to Florida per se, and has a good career, and Miami ends up just fine with the other guys, then you know what? No sweat off your back.
No, you're right about that. It's just, to me, I don't know what this kid is, so I don't even know if it's a loss or not, because I've seen plenty of 4- and 5-star kids that never lived up to any of the hype. But what did you hear about him that makes you think that it could have been a loss overall?
Well, I mean, he's just a super explosive speed. He's a track guy, a guy who creates great separation. I mean, the one game that we saw him, we couldn't really tell because it was Savannah State, so it was a terrible opponent. But certainly, I think, the kid was gifted in terms of breakaway speed and being a home run threat. And obviously, there were other schools who wanted him as well. So it wasn't just Miami who recruited him. He had a lot of great football teams, Power 5 teams that were after him, and there was a reason he was a 5-star recruit. To me, I've said this to somebody else, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but I think the star system, I think there should only be 5 stars. I honestly do. I think whoever's an All-American, whoever is a 5-star, like literally the best of the best, those are the only guys who be rated, should be given a star rating, because the rest of it, to me, it really doesn't matter. The 4 and the 3 and the 2 and that whole system is just, it's a joke. The best of the best. Every scout can tell who the best of the best is. Beyond that, it's just an opinion. So, to me, obviously, this kid is gifted. He's, like I said, super track speed, super breakaway speed, and he's going to go do it for somebody else.
All right, Manny Navarro, of course, joins us every week for our Caneswear Miami Hurricanes report, and you can follow him on Twitter, like I and so many others do, at Manny_Navarro. Any other recruiting news that we should know about, my brother?
Well, I mean, they've certainly offered, different guys here in the last few weeks, a couple cornerbacks, a couple of offensive linemen. I haven't been focused so much on that because we still got a month away from signing day. But Kane Sport and Inside the U and all those guys, your boys Andrew Ivins, they report a lot more on the day-to-day happenings of recruiting. The one big story you haven't asked me about, obviously,
Alonzo.
is yes, the Alonzo Highsmith. I'm sure that was probably one of your subjects coming up. But
yes.
I've exchanged text messages with Alonzo, and obviously I got a lot of sources at Miami. This whole thing to me, it's kind of comical. I know there's a push to bring Alonzo in because he loves Miami would probably be a great athletic director. But
he's not a college, but he's not a college guy. He's a pro guy.
Right. He's a talent evaluator. And here's the thing people need to understand, okay? Number one, he spent a lot of time in the NFL in terms of moving up the ladder to get himself in the position to be a general manager, to be a front office leader. He's basically, I think, the number 2 or number 3 guy in Cleveland as it stands. So, to take a chief of staff position, the number one thing as far as chief of staff, okay, and I asked all of our college football beat reporters at The Athletic. This is a great part about being a part of the network. I asked all of them, I said, okay, guys, who has these chief of staff positions, these quote-unquote overseers, and what do they do? First of all, there's a lot of teams that have had a chief of staff, okay, now, Power 5 schools. FSU just hired one, Penn State. Mike Leach has one at Washington State. Washington has one, Arizona State. All these guys sort of got back to me. The job is essentially part of what the head coach does. It's handing off several duties that the head coach usually handles, like overseeing the equipment team, the video staff, recruiting staff, NFL scouts, administrative work, branding, serving as sort of a gatekeeper, for the head coach to allow him to maybe be more involved in the football aspect of it. That's not what Alonzo Highsmith does. He is a talent evaluator for the Cleveland Browns. He goes to pro days. He goes to the combine.
I know. I see him all the time. Trust me.
Yeah,
and I'll be hanging with Zoe at the Senior Bowl and at the combine shortly. Yes.
Yeah. So this job, this chief of staff position, to me, it's funny how this came out yesterday. You get Manny Diaz coming on the radio talking about, hey, we're going to go to the spread, we're going to go to up-tempo, and then 6 hours later, you get the athletic director, Blake James, to come on to say, oh, yeah, and yeah, I know all of you guys want Alonzo Highsmith, and we're going to create this chief of staff position. And it's just, to me, it's kind of funny. We got a long time before the football season, man. And these guys, there's no way for them to win over anybody until they win a football game. So I think coming out and talking about doing all the things that the fans want is maybe their way of, hey, calm down, guys. We're working on it. Gee, we want a chief of staff. We want Alonzo here. We want to run a spread. The reality is none of it matters, though. Until they get on the football field and win, the heat is not coming off Manny Diaz or Blake James. And this whole position for Alonzo Highsmith, unless he's coming in to run the athletic department and be in charge of hiring and firing football coaches, there's no way that he ends up at Miami.
Makes all the sense in the world that he shouldn't come here. And Manny Navarro, of course, with our Caneswear Miami Hurricanes report here. We do it every week at this time. You can follow Manny on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. And, of course, come on out to Caneswear, 2511 South University Drive in Davie. Brett is out here with me right now, actually, watching the segment. All right, Manny, so are these the changes that are going to happen in the coaching staff? Are they done? Is this it after the OC? You hear anything else, or that's
no? Obviously, look, Eno's brought in Butch Berry, the offensive line coach, and Taylor Stubblefield, the receivers coach. Manny praised Stubblefield yesterday, saying he felt like the receivers were running routes better, that they're being coached up better. As far as the offensive line is concerned, knowing the players, talking to a few of them. Talking to some of the recruits, they really like Butch Berry as far as a tactician. But ultimately, whoever the offensive coordinator is, you know and I know, we've been doing this for a long damn time, they want their own guys. 99% of the time, they want their own guys. So I'm sure whoever Manny hires is going to want to bring his guys with him. And so anybody who is an offensive coach, to me, is capable of being let go. If that coach wants to bring somebody with him to be part of his staff. And the interesting thing here is, too, this can't be understated enough. This team was 6-7. There's a lot of pressure on Manny Diaz to win next year. If they have another season like this, he can be gone. And I think that obviously has to be considered by the offensive coordinator who's going to take the job. They have to know, hey, I'm coming in to work for a coach who could potentially be gone, right?
Yeah.
Who's on the hot seat. And an athletic director who's very much on the hot seat, I would think, based on what's sort of happening at Miami and the level of anger and frustration towards the football program. So it'll be interesting to see who they hire. This Heckendorf guy out of Arkansas State, again, He's at Arkansas State, so I'm sure coming to Miami would be an upgrade for him as an offensive coordinator. But some of the other names that we've heard, I know everybody's all excited about Joe Brady because he's a local guy, and the Broyles winner at LSU. He's not going to leave LSU to come coach and be the offensive coordinator at Miami, even if this is home. I mean, you would have to give him $3 million and maybe a promise that he'd be the head coach if anything happened to Manny Diaz, I think, to get him. So, to me, it's going to be interesting to see who they hire. And my understanding from hearing internally is, yes, they'd like to do this fast and get somebody to be the head coach. But I also think it's going to be a challenge to get the next guy if it's going to be a big name.
It only makes sense that he's on the hot seat, but the Blake James right now has definitely got to be feeling it, right? I mean, he's got. Yeah. I would imagine that right now he's trying to do everything to help Manny to succeed because this is like his first big time hire as an AD.
Right. I mean, obviously he hired Mark Richt.
Oh, he did Richt. That's right, and it didn't work actually.
Right. Well, it worked in the sense that they went 10-0 and they showed flashes, but then it didn't work because it fell apart at the end. But
right.
I think without question, look, there's enough people complaining about the football program, and I've said this to you many times. Manny Diaz and Blake James are paying for the sins of this football program being bad, not just now, but for the last 15 years, even if they weren't necessarily a part of it for all of that time. So, yes, everything is ramped up, and then when you go out and you lose to FIU, it only amplifies it more. Look, had Manny beaten FIU and won the season finale against Duke, and they finished 8-4, I don't think we're hearing the yelling and screaming quite to this level. I think people are frustrated, but the fact that he lost to FIU, that was the crippling defeat. That was the, hey, you know what? Your ass is on the hot seat loss. And again, nothing is going to change till these guys go out and go 10-2, 11-1. And show that the thing is really headed in the right direction. And I think Manny knows that. He knows he's in a tough spot. But, all these little games going on, saying, hey, this is what we're doing, we're going to the spread, it's trying to win over the fan base when really you can't win over the fan base this time of year.
All right, follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. Catch him every week at this time right here as we do our Caneswear Miami Hurricanes report. And come on out to Caneswear at 2511 South University Drive in Davie. Manny, as always, Studley, my brother, thank you, and Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year to you both, and let's hope 2020 is better for all of us.
You bet.
Happy New Year, Manny.
You know it. Thank you,
Happy New
sir.
Year.
Appreciate it. There you go.